of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sarah, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Lyons?
Here.
Vice Mayor Stanley?
Here.
Commissioner White? Here. Commissioner Orthwein? Here. Mayor Morgan?
Here.
Let the record also show that Town Manager Greg Dunham is present, as is our Assistant Town Attorney, Edward Nazaro, and our Police Chief, Edward Allen, and myself.
Thank you. We've been presented with the minutes from our last meeting on December 13th. Are there any changes, corrections, additions? If not, is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Second?
Ms. Taylor?
Commissioner Lyons?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwein?
Yes.
Mayor Morgan?
Yes. Read any changes to the agenda?
No, we have no changes.
The next regular meeting is February 14th at 9 a.m. Rita, we talked about, was it the March meeting?
The April meeting.
April meeting.
The April 10th meeting
And the issue with April 10th
is it's Good Friday.
is Good Friday. So we would like to obviously change the date for our April meeting to either the week before or the Friday after. Friday after makes more sense. Or does it? Takes us, no, it's still within April.
Did we have a, didn't we have a sound testing thing or something pending in April, on which that may or may not be on
I
the
think we're gonna
schedule?
get that done earlier
So
than,
not that it won't affect it.
I don't think so.
Okay, let's go earlier.
Well, if you want it on a Friday, that would put it on April the 3rd.
Do we need to do it on a Friday? Why not? We don't really need to do it on
No.
Friday.
Do you want to do it on Thursday, the 9th?
Well, the only issue with that is people do, I don't know about us, but they leave for
The
Easter.
weekend.
You know, Thursday would be fine with me. It depends what the commissioners are planning.
I don't think our meetings.
I'm here, I think we should just bump it up a week. Residents are here, so I'm leaving the first wave, it'll probably work out better. Anybody have a travel
I'm fine
issue?
with that. Do you wanna move it up a week?
That would be the 3rd.
Yeah, we don't know right now.
Moving it forward.
Moving it forward. You don't know of any
Oh,
Then you're in
that would
another
be the
month.
17th.
Yeah, the 17th. So that's what you mentioned.
No, moving it back to the third.
Yeah, I thought that's what you meant.
Excuse me, I misspoke. Back, so not forward.
If there's any business that
Do we have any
residents
applications?
are interested in, it's better than.
Yeah, I mean, then your applications are being deferred into
Yeah,
another
that's
month.
the only thing. I don't know
I'm
what's
not wild
pending.
about doing that. How about if we just go a day or two ahead?
It's just Wednesday or Thursday?
Wednesday or Thursday?
Wednesday is the 8th, and
I mean, before.
Is
April
that-
21st. Wednesday the 21st. How's that?
Wednesday the 21st,
April 23rd is a Friday, right?
that's the date of the AR.
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong one. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong date, that's why. I wonder.
So that's Good Friday.
How about April,
So
about
we
April
were gonna
9th,
So we
Thursday, the
wanna
day
do
before?
April 8th or April
I'm
9th?
sorry, I was looking at the wrong
Yeah,
day.
That's
that's
all right.
okay.
I'm not still on ARP yet.
Let's,
So we could go the 8th, or we could go the 3rd, as you suggest.
We could go the 8th, or the 9th, or the 3rd.
8, 9.
I'm for the 9th,
What's your pleasure?
the day before. It'll keep it simple.
I'm with you.
All right.
One day is much easier to remember.
Yeah.
All right. So unless there's an objection, we will change the regular meeting date for April to April 9th, 20 at 9 a.m. Well, that took a little while. Oh, my God. Any comments from the public? Yes, Christine, nice to see you.
Happy New Year, everybody. I wanted to let you know that by popular request, I am going to be doing a class, local civics class back over at Gulfstream School again. So they will either be here in chambers with you, on March 13th or April 9th.
You can come April 23rd. Thank you, Christine. Let's move on to reports. Town manager report.
Okay.
Brandon?
Thank you, Mayor. I have Mr. Rosa again with us today from Comcast Cable. I'll just, before he starts, I think pretty much the couple of weeks over the holidays, you didn't see any utilities out here working. I can say this, Comcast Cable is back at work. I don't have such good news about AT&T, so I'll let Mr. Rosa begin.
Yeah. Well, good morning and Happy New Year. Hope everybody had a good holiday. As Greg alluded to, from Christmas to New Year, we basically lost all of our crews because everybody, you know, it fell on an odd time of the year. It fell on a Wednesday for Christmas and a Wednesday for New Year. So for the past 2.5, almost 3 weeks, we haven't worked. Now we have full crews back up and running. We are at 64 homes are completed right now. We've got some contact information that we just got for the addresses on the beach that we'll be working on, and we hope to be finished by the end of this month with the rest of the remaining 30 homes that need to be done. Is there any questions?
That's great.
Okay, yeah.
And there was some work that they couldn't do because
Correct.
it was so wet. They had to bullet
Right,
the road
yeah.
and it just couldn't do it. So
Yeah, we have one situation out here on, I think it's Old School.
Old school and polo.
Old School and Polo. It's so wet down there that every time we try to put a missile underneath there, we take the risk of losing a missile. There's like when you push, it's like a suction cup down there. When you try to get that missile up underneath there, then you gotta pull it back or try to get it out. It becomes stuck. So, you know, those missiles are very expensive, so what we're gonna end up doing, we're gonna end up having to cut the road and do it, because there's so much in there that we'd rather cut the road and do it the right way, and then just patch it up one more finish. We have 2 locations,
right.
and Greg is aware of those locations. Okay, with that being said, I think we're gonna, you know, hopefully get it finished by the end of this month. If not, I will be here next month to let you know, okay?
Thanks for keeping us up to
Yeah.
date.
Scott, one quick question.
Yes, sir.
So, you're doing the existing customers, then, after you do if I'm not a Comcast customer,
Correct.
I think I will be,
All right,
so then I call Comcast, and then you come in,
correct. Then they'll come in and they'll bury a drop with a pipe and mount a house box
so
exactly.
you'll do it on a one-off basis at that point.
Pardon me?
You'll
Yeah,
do it on a one-off basis.
one-off basis, yes. We just wanna get the existing Comcast customers switched over first.
Okay.
And then once that's done, anybody else, we'd love to have the whole town switch over to Comcast. But, you know, it's, you know, you can pick and choose your provider. But, yeah, we are there, so yes, that would be a one-off. So they just call up and they would schedule up and then, they would have to come out. And if they come out and they're not putting in a pipe to your house, if you see that and they're direct buried, please call me. Greg has my number. There should be no fiber optic buried on this town property without it being in a conduit, from the outside to the house.
I have another
Buried conduit. Yes, sir.
question on that, and I don't know whether other homes have the same situation. On the side of my house, I have a conduit coming up, and it's probably 4 feet out of the ground, and just sticking up.
Yeah, that was put in by the Wilco, the company that was hired to put in all the pipes.
Well, what will that be used for?
If you have that pipe, we'll end up using that pipe.
Okay, good.
And we just need to know where that, with Wilco, let me back up, with the company that did the pre-existing piping, we had to go back and fix a lot of problems. So where that pipe may end up, it's gonna end up being out in the utility easement or out in the right of way. How close it is to one of our boxes, that's to be determined, because there's been several of them that we've been able to use and some of them that we've not been able to use, because we can't find the end of them, so yes. In that situation, when Comcast comes in, it's at it's not being utilized, we'll just cut it off. You just cap it, right at ground level.
Okay, good.
Okay? Anything else?
That's it, thanks.
Have a happy new year.
Appreciate it very much.
See you, thank you.
Let's move on to the water main update.
Sure. Okay, let's see. So, we're on schedule, for the project, where the design is 100% complete. And this right here is the bid document. So, and it's ready. So, we'll be, just give you some dates here, we'll be putting this, bid, in the newspaper on January 26th. And then, let's see, they'll be available to the bidders on Tuesday, January 28th. Then on, they will be, we're gonna have a mandatory, pre-bid conference, with bidders on Thursday, February 13th. And then, all of this, bids will be required to be here by Friday, April 3rd at 2 o'clock. And then, depending on how many bids that we get, there's a review and recommendation done by Baxter Woodman. We're putting April 24th on that. It could be sooner than that, just again, depending on how many bids that we get. And then we're looking to award the bid at the May 8th meeting. And I'm going to look at here again, it's May 8th, so I just want to make sure that's the right date. And then this could be sooner, but being conservative, we'll be giving the notice to proceed by June 1st, with the final completion, again conservative, by December 31. I'm hoping that both of those dates can be sooner. So,
Very good. Question?
update on the water main project, which leads me into the CIP discussion related to that. Just to kind of bring you up to date, again, we're in fiscal year 2020, and that on our implementation schedule is a year of construction, as you know, and that's what we're doing. Next year, or the fiscal year 2021, is scheduled at this point in time to work on in the northern core area, and I have a map that identifies it, but it would be C Road, Old School, Banyan, Gulfstream, Right Way, Oleander, Polo, and this will all be design and permitting for road work and water main work at this point in time. But I'd also like to kind of introduce another more smaller project that along with Baxter Woodman and I were developing a scope of work for the town for minor drainage and edge pavement repairs that we'd like to do this year. And I'm just, if you'll indulge in me, I'm going to kind of read what the scope of work would be so that you would know. So, of course, you all know about the areas where ponding and rutting alongside the roads has been occurring. And so the focus areas would be Polo, Gulfstream, Old School, Banyan, and Lakeview, both between Gulfstream and Polo. And both of those could be expanded because there is some of that west of Polo. Baxter and Woodman would be preparing a scope of work to identify repairs, generally minor in nature, to address roadside ponding and rutting. The repairs will focus on repairs to move drainage runoff to the inlets or swales, and the following tasks are anticipated to do that. Conduct a field inventory to identify ponding and rutting locations, identify location and provide description of the issue, and then provide photo documentation. Mr. Stanley's already seen myself and Rebecca Travis out doing some of that already on the golf cart. So they would provide with us a location, a description of the problem. Recommended solution may include add curb along edge of pavement at turn radiuses, like we've done one time before. Provide 1 foot plus or minus wide asphalt pavement strip along the edge of pavement to prevent rutting from parked vehicles or cars running off the edge of the pavement. The asphalt strip would slope away from the roadway. Provide stone or rock shoulder treatment along the edge of pavement to prevent rutting from parked vehicles. Provide slope away from the roadway. Cut roadway swales and resod to direct runoff from the edge of the roadway. Remove grass in front of drainage inlets and provide asphalt drainage inlet aprons to allow runoff to reach the inlet. And then adjust drainage inlet tops and gates or saw cut and raise the road where settlement has occurred around drainage inlets. So one of the best examples of that is the big inlet down at Old School and Polo that always has water ponding around it, they can't get into it. So one way to address that is to take the lid off, actually cut the box down and lower it so the water can get into it. So that's one example. These are not global fixes, they're more specific site fixes. And so she made a note on here that I'd like to read to you. Note that this work is intended to address the roadway ponding, trapped water along the roadways, and roadside rutting on a short-term basis. Full roadway reconstruction or milling and overlaying an entire length of roadway to improve the slope along the road will be coordinated with the proposed excavation work required for the water main and roadway rehabilitation projects outlined in the CIP. So she gave me like a real ballpark figure of what she thought this might be, but I'm not going to rely on that at this point in time until she has a more accurate one. But this is money that we had budgeted already to do if we chose to do it.
Yeah, just to kind of put an overview summary of this.
I mean, you all saw the roads
Yeah.
over the holidays. I mean, it just.
But while our financial and infrastructure focus is on Main A1A and possibly extending that through County and Little Club, and while we're also considering the work and expenditures for septic to sewer, it seemed wise to try to address the main issues of very narrow roads, particularly Gulfstream, and water pooling at Polo, if it could be done relatively inexpensively and relatively quickly. And so we've looked at it. We feel that expanding Gulfstream Road, particularly on the east side, going all the way up, putting a curb down on Lakeview, and addressing this Polo piling of water because of the elevated drainage area will make a significant difference for the town. It can be done quickly and pretty inexpensively, relatively speaking. So that I think is the direction we're going to go. But
Right.
It needs to be evaluated further by the engineers and put some quotes together for us to consider.
This is for your information, but it's just, I think, something that we need to consider. And I think everybody on the dais here
I'm very
would-
much in
would
favor of
agree
it.
with this, so.
I'm in favor of a fix like that for a while.
Good. Well, we want to-
Okay, let's see. So I think that's it.
Okay.
It's,
ARPB meeting, next is January 23rd at 8:30 a.m. for anyone who wishes to attend. Finance report, Mr. Dunn.
Yes, this finance report that you have represents 25% of our fiscal year budget. All of our expense lines, or most of our expense lines are under the 25% at this point in time, so it's in good shape.
Any questions? Comments? All right, move on on to Chief Allen, please.
I request the report be submitted as is with one minor change on there. The note that auto burglary notes is all unlocked vehicles. There were 2 unlocked vehicles and one was actually a smashed window. A smashed window occurred at the Baton Tennis Club. We believe they were actually looking for lawn equipment because they were taking lawn equipment the following day in Delray, same vehicle. And they just had an opportunity, saw the person in the vehicle and smashed the window and took it. The other is an ongoing investigation with the burglary for residents, which was a distraction type of a burglary. We believe that the victim was possibly followed home, and that's how they ended up at her location. They distracted her by saying there was a water leak on the 4th floor, and she had to come in the house and look at the plumbing under the sink sort of thing, and while she was with the male subject, a female subject entered and rummaged through the bedroom taking jewelry. It's still an ongoing investigation that we're still following up leads on. And we also had one vehicle stolen from in the Osceola area, which had the keys in the car and all, and it was recovered the same day, undamaged, recovered in Fort Lauderdale.
I just want to extend my compliments to the police department chief, and in particular Sergeant Passagiata, who was doing the investigation of that distraction burglary. He's really gone above and beyond what would be expected of most police officers. Looking at videotape information, following up with visas, banks, visiting sites in Broward County, elsewhere to try to locate these individuals who were involved. And my understanding is that he has. Now, the question of whether
We're making progress.
that been apprehended or not is another question, but I just want everyone to know that this is not something that the town's police department just records at these meetings. There is active investigation, and really, from my experience, Sergeant's gone well beyond what
Thank you.
most police departments do.
Appreciate that.
Any other questions? If not, we'll accept your report as submitted. Let's move on to ordinance number 20/1. Mr. Nazar.
Thank you, Mayor. When codifying the ordinances to update the code, Unicode noticed a scrivener's error in section 70-148. If you recall, that was an ordinance that was about 30-some pages long that did away with all the discouraged items. So there was one, like I said, scrivener's error in section 70-148, so this just corrects that error.
Okay, so we'll want to have read the correction.
Read the title.
Ms. Taylor, then?
An ordinance of the Town Commission of the Town of Gulfstream, Palm Beach County, Florida, eliminating references to items categorized as discouraged and declaring them prohibited by amending the Town Code of Ordinances at Chapter 20, Article 5, Division 3, General Landscape Standards, Section 70-148, Principles, providing for severability, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict, providing for codification, and providing an effective date. This is being presented for first reading this 10th day of January 2020.
Ordinance number 20/1, correcting a scrivener error, has been presented for first reading. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve 20-1. Second.
Ms. Taylor?
Commissioner Lyons?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwein?
Yes.
Mayor Morgan?
Yes. Move on to ordinance number 20/2. Mr. Nazaro.
Thank you, Mayor. This is another sort of scrivener's error that was caught by Rita, Town Clerk Taylor, maybe a year or so ago. So when the town annexed additional property north of C Road, the town modified the language in section 66-321, which created the North Ocean Boulevard Overlay District. That extended that overlay district from C Road along Marine Ave to County Road. In doing so, it removed sort of the definition of what that was. So if you look at the red part at the end of the paragraph, extending 50 feet east and west boundaries of the right-of-way in A1A. That no longer existed in the code when the ordinance changed that boundary, so it's just inadvertently overlooked. So that corrects that issue, and then it also, pardon me, correctly defines the northern terminus of the town as Little Club Road and not County Road. So those two changes are reflected in this ordinance.
Okay, Ms. Taylor, would you read that ordinance?
An ordinance of the Town Commission of the Town of Gulfstream, Palm Beach County, Florida, amending the Town Code of Ordinances at Chapter 66, Article 7, Section 66-321, Creation, providing for severability, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict, providing for codification, and providing an effective date, presented for first reading this 10th day of January 2020.
I'll move to approve number 2020.
Second?
20/2?
No, did I say 2020? I meant 20/2.
In 2020.
2020.
And it's been seconded, Ms. Taylor.
Commissioner Lyons?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwein?
Yes.
Mayor Morgan?
Yes. Move on to establishing the auditor selection committee, Mr. Dunn.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. The new Florida statutes have changed the selection procedures for auditors, towns and cities and counties. And so what the town needs to do, obviously, is comply with that. That includes creating a 3-person committee that will develop and approve a bid document and then ultimately review and approve bids for that service. And this committee shall have, again, 3 people, and it will be required to have 1 person who will be the chairman of the committee that is on the town commission. And I spoke to Mr. Lyons this morning. I was with him almost all day yesterday, and I meant to say, would you mind being the chairperson and the commissioner that would be on this committee? And I spoke to him earlier, and he said that he would be glad to do that. Don't make me into a liar now. So,
I'd be happy to do that.
and other requirements are that none of the staff, the manager or the chief financial officer can be on this committee. I mean, while we can help manage it, we can't be on the committee. So I've already got commitments from 2 other managers to be on it, and that would be Linda from the town of Manalapan and Tracy from the town of Ocean Ridge. I'm actually on the committee for Manalapan, and it's going through the procedure right now, and I think Ocean Ridge just finished yours. Yeah. So,
That's good structure. I think it's wonderful because you really do have independence.
so we're in the last year, obviously, and speaking of audits, they're pretty much done with ours, and I believe that we'll be ready to present that at the next meeting. So this is probably the earliest that we've done this for quite a while. And so whenever they're done and it's accepted, then our contract ends with them. So that's why we're going through this procedure now, so we don't have to try or do this when we're in the rush to get the new audit done. So I need.
So we're looking for a motion to approve an auditor
That
selection
committee
committee.
that would be made up of Mr. Lyons.
Mr. Lyons and a representative from
Ocean Ridge and
Manalapan. Correct. Is there a motion?
I'll move to recommend Mr. Lyons and Lynn from Manalapan and Sonata from Ocean Ridge.
Tracy, the two town managers.
The 2 town managers.
Second?
Ms. Taylor?
Commissioner Lyons?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwein?
Yes.
Mayor Morgan?
Yes.
Yes.
Let's move on to items by the commissioners. Mr. Lyons?
Yes, I have a issue I'd like to raise at this meeting regarding parking in the core district. Specifically, I've been approached by a number of residents regarding cars that have been parked on the town's right-of-way. Often, this one house has 2 vehicles for days on end. I'm not sure that the resident appreciates that they're on town property. In fact, I'm sure, a lot of confusion as to what is the town's right-of-way, because many of the homes in the core district have landscaping, grass, in some cases pavement, that protrude onto the town's right-of-way. And this is one picture. Could you show the second one too? Oh, by the way, you see the white SUV on the right side? Where the road is aligned with the off-the-road pavement. Well, let me put this differently. Where the hedge is the eastern border of the town's right-of-way. And actually, I meant to ask the town manager to bring his copy in. You have that overlay that's easy to show, or is it unnecessary?
No, go get it.
So, and there's the other perspective. So, the truck on the right, you can see sits on the property which is to the west, and those homes there look out onto the street, and they're looking at parking of vehicles that belong to the house to the east, and that white Rover actually is there 24 hours for months on end sometimes. So, the residents who have raised the concern would like for the town to address this overnight parking, 24/7 parking on the town's right-of-way.
Don't we have an ordinance that they can only be there for 24 hours?
No, I mean, the parking ordinance only addresses overnight parking here.
Yeah, this was brought up before, and we have talked about it. Maybe Mr. Nazaro can shed some light on it.
We did have a similar issue in Place Au Soleil that I looked into for a resident. Town Manager Dunham and myself met with him, had a lengthy discussions about this issue, and it turned out that their homeowners association prohibited parking overnight on the street. So we never actually brought anything to the commission, but we have researched this issue and the way that we were going to resolve that, that a car that was parked on the road 24/7, essentially, like Mr. Lyons states, but over on Place Au Soleil, was to prohibit overnight parking, and that would be how we would regulate it. So there would still be the ability to have guests and parties and park in the town right away, but just not leave your car there indefinitely, sort of. And that's how we had anticipated addressing that if it hadn't been resolved in another way.
In Plaza Soleil, it was resolved by check, I believe, going to the homeowners and asking them.
But you actually have
Homeowners
homeowners
Association.
association rule.
But, yeah, there was a homeowners association, but I think, the feeling was that, the people almost were doing it on purpose, but when they were asked correctly, I think, in the right way, it ceased to be a problem.
Well, we have the basis of an ordinance because it was already reviewed and researched. You obviously can't stop all parking during the day, particularly temporary parking, and you don't want to interfere with visitors, you have a party, you have some overflow parking, that sort of thing. But it's the overnight parking that is the issue. Go back a slide or two.
Yeah, there's one other, so.
It was in the next one.
Well,
Well, that's good enough. That's good enough. This is right for the town up here. Notice how, this is what we were talking about earlier, about expanding the roads. If this goes forward, and if the costs come in and the engineering is acceptable, what we're thinking of doing is opening the road to that level and expanding it. So that would be the size of your road on Polo. So that will all be public road. Now, the rights of way change, as you can see on the overhead shot. And so it would not be a straight line down Polo, but you get an idea, and perhaps I'm segueing into a different topic, but you get an idea of what the road would look like when expanded to allow better control of traffic. And once that's a road, we certainly are not going to want to have people parking there all the time. So I guess the issue is,
And expanding on the mayor's comments here, I've got this Google map here that shows this is Gulfstream. And you're familiar with it. The hash line is the right of way. And the road goes down basically the left side of the right of way. And so what you're looking at here on the left side, the right of way averages about a foot to 3 feet, only a foot to 3 feet that is part of the right of way, then it becomes private property. On the other side, you got like 15 to 18 feet of right of way. So the road does not go down the middle of the right of way. So,
that's the problem.
Who paved that? It looks like that area is paved with a park. Who paved
with
that?
what?
Who paved that area under the?
We discussed that at length. It's hard to establish who owned the property at the time, but it's been there quite a while. And there's another similar pull-off parking cutout on Gulfstream Road, which is a related subject that I would like to see the practice. We make this road and it'll be a dead issue, but some people specifically in Gulfstream had on the east side of the road, the homeowners who were between Gulfstream and A1A had created parking areas on the back of their property, and in fact, not only at the back, outside of their hedge, that gives them privacy. And, you know, I think the notion of parking cars outside your hedge, but worse, I'm not going to use adjectives, adverse. We shouldn't have cars parking, you know, overnight.
If that's over the right of way, couldn't you remove, I mean, the fact that it's paved almost invites parking to me.
Well, that's why we don't want to continue the practice. I don't know what you do about the pass. I don't know when that could have been put in a while ago, and maybe it was allowed then. I don't know whether you can change what was done. But we certainly shouldn't permit any additional.
But if that's over the right of way, couldn't the town remove the paving and the grass?
well, we want to do we're thinking of doing the opposite.
Do you think people would want, I mean, I think Gulfstream Road there is really narrow, so I
Oh, it's
think that's a
very
really good idea, so
Yes.
take what I say in the right way.
Yes.
But do you think people are gonna be like shocked when we start taking over and,
I mean, we will do plenty of.
yeah.
There'll be-
I just want to
Notices.
prepare people
I know.
for what's coming,
Yeah.
instead of going, oh, by the way, we're taking this
Right.
over.
No, absolutely, it's
Because
going to
they're
be done
gonna
very
think we're taking
slowly.
it over.
It's going to be done very slowly. This is
Okay.
an issue that has been brought up at least as long as I've been on the commission.
Yeah,
Everybody here, they complain about the traffic and the water and parking on the road. And we've been studying this for 5 years. And the only way to address it is to enlarge the roads. These are cart paths. They're really not roads. And Gulfstream Road in particular is so narrow, you cannot get two vehicles to pass each other.
I agree with
So-
Gulfstream Road is so much
The
more
only
narrow.
the only way to do it
You-
is to
you can't
expand the road.
You can't drive two cars in opposite directions.
You know, it has an appearance of an alley for the homes that are on A1A, frankly. I've treated sometimes that way.
But the point is, if you were to do this, how does that impact each of the individual homeowners? Because the rights of way really
Moves,
Wow.
meanders.
see what the impact would be. I mean, for example, if you were to expand on the left side of that photograph, what, you've got mailbox, you've got driveways.
I don't
That's
think
what I was
any,
saying.
I don't think any of the expansion on Gulfstream should even be on the west side. I think it should be
It should
all
be
on
on the east side.
the west,
And we've
east
looked
side.
at this as to the best way to do it with the least impact on the residents. But, you know, the engineers will do a more thorough study with recommendation. And maybe we'll do it, maybe we won't. Maybe we'll do some of it, but not all of it. But I agree with you completely, Joni. This is not something that will be imposed just by the commission. It
Yeah.
has to be worked out with the civic association.
Mhm.
Probably
Okay,
has
thank
to
you.
lead on
Because I
that.
do think Gulfstream Road is extremely narrow and there are a lot of, I agree with this, I just don't wanna bulldoze through it.
Oh, no, go.
Absolutely not.
I would
But
never
it
do that.
gets into what Paul's talking about. These parking areas will essentially be absorbed
Yeah.
by that expansion. And we don't want people parking on our road, actually, whether it's our road or whether it's a cutout,
Yeah.
frankly. It's an unsightly,
I mean, the
visual
code
experience.
specifically addresses parking defined by, you have to have a two-car garage, you have to have additional parking areas on your property. I think there are very few occasions where somebody would have a overflow parking problem. And I would hope that they would ask their neighbor to put it across the street or, most properties have ample parking. There's a few that don't. Would you say you have ample parking in your house?
You know what, for my husband and I, when we were living there, but when our 3 kids were at home, it was a little tough. And also, they have friends over, so we're talking 2 different issues. This is a constant problem, is when, like, my children had friends over, maybe end up spending the night or whatever. I mean, that's a 24-hour situation. That's why I thought we had something. I don't know, it must have been something I wanted. But at least give those people enough time, because there are a lot of young residents, maybe with kids, and you don't want to, I mean, I don't know where to go with the cars when all my neighbors are there. When they're not there, the neighbors are very nice, but when they're all there, it's a little bit more of a problem.
Well,
I don't have a problem anymore because I don't have children at home, but I don't want to be unfair to people. Like, I think if it's a one-time situation within a 30-day, or it's a different thing that we're talking about a constant problem versus maybe a one-time problem. And
How big an issue is this? I mean, how many people park their cars 24/7?
I don't know.
I mean, isn't it something we could just talk to the resident?
yeah, I mean, I hate
Address
to
it.
start doing ordinances to solve some problem like this. You know, my neighbor across the street, they have an overflow of cars right now, and I know they have to park on the street, because there's so many cars and their kids are home. And you know what, it's a pain, but it's not a forever pain. I mean, to back out of my driveway, because they love to park right there.
I would say that to answer your question, this is the one house that, I mean, I don't see this on a regular basis in
So-
the other houses.
I don't think we should start doing things just for one specific thing when maybe we can talk to them.
And I think some of the people that are affected by it may have attempted to do that, so,
Well, here's where
Yeah,
here's the issue. The individual who's most impacted has visited with town manager, spoken to me numerous times. And because we don't have some kind of code to prohibit that, you know, it's a delicate issue when a neighbor goes to another neighbor and say, by the way, your car's a real nuisance in front of me, move those cars. And apparently, this neighbor, there's been some discussion in the past, and they moved it and they moved it back. And I don't know how to deal with it. I agree with, I don't like rules in general, but, you know, when somebody is electing to park outside their hedge on town property,
Chief, is there a safety issue with cars being on our road parked like that?
We pass trucks by there all the time, and
but during the day,
Even
you
during
can
the
see,
day.
but at night it's more dangerous.
Well, most cars have reflectors on the rear, and it is really off the main portion of the road. It's not on the roadway itself, so it's,
I was just looking for a different angle.
yeah, kinda gray
So,
there. You
because-
Fire truck.
know, you can fit a fire truck through, an ambulance through, you know, without a
Mrs.
problem.
Orthwine, so, and I totally agree with you about passing ordinances
Yeah.
that have unintended consequences that you figure out 6 months later.
Yeah, I just,
And so that's part of our research, yeah, I mean, when we create something new, I mean, we sit and talk about what if this happens, or what about this, or what about that? So we do consider those unintended consequences that may come up.
Why don't you, I mean, I have a rough idea, but I don't wanna speak on the record when I have an actual number. I think most of what I call the funky parking areas are on Gulf Stream.
yeah, I agree with that.
So why don't you all, this is my suggestion, the commission can make a decision, but why don't you all just kind of like, not singling anybody out, but just kind of like, cause this will be rolled up in the, when the right of way is expanded. So what, I mean, y'all can already know this, you just need to check it off, it takes like 20 minutes, but just identify like the funky parking areas, like how many homes that would be. And then we can just kind of, then we'll have kind of a better baseline without waiting on engineering and all this fancy stuff for the next meeting. I think right now, the couple of parking culprits, I think that situation is known, the cars have moved. Since I
Oh,
know,
really?
yeah, since I know all the parties involved.
Well, they must have known that it
Problem
was being brought up
solved.
at the meeting, because I know that the neighbor in question has spoken to maybe you and some others on Gulf Stream, just to get this neighbor that, he doesn't want to, you know, it's awkward for me to get into this, because he wants to be a good neighbor, he doesn't want to appear as a complainer. But let's.
There's a few separate areas, I just don't wanna single out one house. And then some of these, you know, and some of our site plans on Gulfstream Road actually have, designated parking areas in the plan that we approve in the front of the home with pavers going in, which is on the property. So the residents don't know what's what.
That's true.
So if you kinda, I mean, in advance of a major engineering study, we know what they are, even my dog Piper knows where they are. Just write them down, and, you know, we're not singling anybody out, and this is just under the auspices of, you know, what may change in advance of making the right of way wider, then we'll make a decision whether we need an ordinance or not.
I think that's good. Is
So
that
it's
truck there just momentarily?
Instead of
Is
just
it
focusing on one
always
house.
there?
No, that's temporary.
That was a temporary truck?
That's
Okay,
construction.
I didn't know if that was part
No,
of the
that's-
issue.
that's
So,
construction.
Joan and
And, you know, some houses that don't have garages, and I've answered that question for years, that's grandfather, you pull a new permit, you do a major renovation. Public policy is you've gotta have 2-car garage and space for 2 cars to park, which we don't have.
I don't want to belabor this point, I absolutely agree that I'd rather have fewer ordinances than more. I have an ordinance just for this circumstance. So let me move beyond comment on the parking, but about people placing pavement, vegetation clearly on the town's right of way. And we have an example on Banyan, where the house had low ground cover, and then they put up a hedge. And that's clearly on the right of way, and that road is so narrow,
Also
So-
like you.
you know.
It's
There's
still
other-
like you.
There's other circumstances like that, and so that when I speak to the town manager about it, I get well, I can't really do anything about it, because we don't have an ordinance against it. I mean, is that too simple?
It's too simple, yes.
Okay.
So,
Well, why do we continue to have people
because
saying?
those 2 roads right there that you're talking about, Banyan and Lakeview, are probably going to be expanded.
Okay, so
That-
So we're gonna-
That's part of what we're gonna be looking at in this.
Okay, so we're gonna address these issues through the expansion. Okay, so who's gonna speak to,
Yeah, rights of way are gonna start to be enforced as we.
okay, that's,
Right.
I'm not trying to be difficult.
Not at all.
It just is, my voicing these concerns are really regurgitating the input I get from people in the community. I mean, this is not original thought on my part.
Banyan and Lakeview are real problems, because only one vehicle can get down those roads at the same time.
Correct.
You know, I'll be out there, I'll turn onto the street, and here comes a landscape maintenance, and yeah, you just gotta back up, or pull into somebody's driveway. Only one vehicle, whether it's a car or truck, can get down those two stretches at the same
Yeah, I
time.
think you put the word out that this issue is now going to be addressed, but it's not going to be addressed by fiat.
Tom, and you sense that this resident understands that?
Yeah, I think so, but I mean, there's still a lack of understanding with these funky parking areas of what's what. So if, like, you know, so they'll have to, because immediately residents aren't looking at topographies and boundary surveys, they're in other business runs. So they'll say, well, so-and-so has a beautiful approved parking area, how is that different than mine? So we've got a little bit of education.
And that's what we're up against.
And I think that our, not to single, but I think that parking area there, I mean, I've been in the neighborhood 10 years. I'm quite certain, without looking at dated maps, that probably was there before the current owner bought it, even
Yes.
beyond that.
Yes.
Probably these are all holdovers, I think, from the 80s.
And then another good example on
Maybe
the,
earlier than
on-
that.
on
I've been here, and I think that's been there ever since I've been
Yeah,
here.
exactly.
I mean, Vice Mayor, another good example on Gulfstream Road is the southeast corner of Gulfstream, and it's either Banyan or Lakeview. There's a paved area in front of their front door, the front of their house. It's on the southeast corner. I know you know which one
Yeah.
I'm talking about. And I hardly ever see a vehicle in there unless it's a UPS truck or a landscape. But that's not one that has regularly has cars, vehicles, passenger vehicles parked in it.
Do you think it's more popular to increase the size of the road than doing one-way roads as opposed to?
But you
And
still,
I'm not bringing this up,
you
but-
still have the problem of, it's just one lane, and if there's a landscape company there, if you're going the same direction, you still gotta get around it somehow.
Right.
And the chief's addressed
One way, I know,
different
you
problems
have,
that-
I was just saying,
Um,
expanding or one way.
So is the consensus that we should try to identify those homes that may present some issues, and rather than moving forward immediately with an ordinance consideration? Is that-
And we can be looking at that as we go.
We already have the groundwork for that.
Right.
So perhaps at the next meeting, we can bring forward the identities of some problematic homes. Mr. Nazaro can kind of have an outline of an ordinance. We can start moving forward that way. Is that good?
That's fine with me.
That's fine.
Thank you, guys.
Just,
Well, I'm glad you brought up because it's a topic that
Comes up frequently.
comes up so frequently. I'd like to comment on the passing of our friend, Brian Dean, who died on December 29th. Brian fought a long and courageous battle with cancer. He'd been our head of maintenance and grounds for almost 20 years and knew a lot of people in this town, which was evident at his service. Wasn't just people, co-workers, but was residents as well. He was really a remarkable guy. Very knowledgeable, professional. If there was something that in this town, and this town has a lot of old equipment, old things, if anything needed repaired, he could do it, and he could recommend improvements to it. He kept this town going. But it wasn't just his professionalism that attracted us to him. It was his personality. He had this genuine, quiet friendliness about him, very kind, that immediately attracted you to him. So while he earned our respect with his competence, he earned our friendship with his kindness. residents who have been lost.
Yeah,
Mr. Lyons.
regrettably, there are two wonderful people who are not with us anymore. From Polo Drive. Sorry. Barry Merrill, Reed, I think you've known him a long, long time. And he had many of the same characteristics. Brian, you just immediately had an affection for him. He loved people, he was respectful to people, he was fun to be around. He'll be terribly missed. I don't know whether you all heard that Pete died. And he was an iconic gentleman who excelled at his excelled really at something he loved, and that was designing golf courses. But what he really did wasn't design golf courses. He loved moving dirt. And that's really what he did. He understood how to move dirt on a golf course to make it an experience. And I'm sure that many who have been here recall Pete. In the old days, he would be walking 60, his white dog down the street. And he did it twice a day to the golf course, and he just walked the golf course. And then later on, he would be in the golf cart with 60, and then obviously it all progressed. So he'll be terribly missed, and I consider myself fortunate to be in this community with such great people. And Brian will be terribly missed. I must say, I love chatting with him when I'm driving my car. We just chat. So thank you.
Well, we're comforted in